Ted Williams was more than a ballplayer. He was a phenomenon. The last man to hit .400 a season, a fighter pilot who left the game in his prime to serve his country, and a Boston legend who turned every swing into a lesson in perfection. In 1941, while the world teetered on the edge of war, Williams stepped into the box and finished with a .406 batting average, a number so untouchable it has become sacred in baseball's history books. His career on-base percentage of .482 remains the highest of all time, a testament to discipline and mastery few could even dream of. And yet, for all his greatness, Williams was never simple to love. He fought with the press, clashed with the expectations of fans, and carried the burden of being both hero and outcast. He was celebrated and criticized, adored and resented, a man whose life echoed far beyond Fenway Park. So, who was Ted Williams, really? The greatest hitter who ever lived, or a complicated genius, forever chasing perfection? Ted Williams was born Theodore Samuel Williams on the 30th of August, 1918, in San Diego, California. His childhood was marked not by comfort or stability, but by hardship and longing. His father, Samuel, worked as a photographer, often away from home. His mother, May, spent much of her time with the Salvation Army, devoted to her faith and charity. For young Ted, that meant long hours left to himself, a boy without the warmth of constant parental attention. But it was in those empty hours that his obsession with baseball took root. In the dusty lots of San Diego, Ted would swing a bat for hours, perfecting the fluid, compact motion that would one day mesmerize the baseball world. Neighbors recalled the sound of baseballs striking fence posts, echoing through the afternoon. While other children treated the game as a pastime, Ted treated it like a calling, a craft that demanded relentless practice. He would hit until the daylight faded, then hit some more. There was little glamour in his youth. His family's modest circumstances meant that he didn't grow up with luxury or privilege. Instead, what Ted carried with him was hunger, a hunger to escape, to prove himself, and to master the one thing that gave him purpose. Baseball wasn't just a game. It was his refuge, his language, and his destiny. By the time he was a teenager, scouts and coaches in the area already whispered that he was different. His swing wasn't ordinary. His eye wasn't ordinary, and his drive to be great bordering on obsession was unlike anything they had ever seen. From the backyards of San Diego, the boy who often felt forgotten by his own family began building a path to become unforgettable to the world. Ted Williams's journey from San Diego sandlots to the bright lights of the major leagues hinged on a moment of recognition. In high school, he had already begun to stand out, tall and lanky with a whip-like swing that seemed to send balls farther than anyone thought possible. Coaches marveled not just at his raw power, but at the way he studied the game. He wasn't satisfied with simply making contact. He wanted to understand every pitch, every angle, every flaw in an opponent's delivery. By the age of 17, Williams caught the attention of scouts who saw in him something rare, a natural hitter whose mechanics were already refined beyond his years. In 1936, he signed with the San Diego Padres of the Pacific Coast League, a minor league team that gave him his first taste of professional ball. It was here, against seasoned veterans, that Ted proved he wasn't just a local prodigy. His batting eye, his patience, and his effortless power quickly drew headlines across California. The true turning point came in 1937, when the Boston Red Sox purchased his contract. Suddenly, the dream of Fenway Park was no longer distant, it was real. That winter, Ted arrived at spring training with a swagger that was unmistakable. He was still just a teenager, but he carried himself like a man who knew he was born to hit. His debut season in 1939 silenced any doubts. At only 20 years old, Williams batted .327, drove in 145 runs, and immediately established himself as one of the most dangerous young hitters in baseball. The rookie was brash, unafraid of veterans, and unapologetically confident. When asked about his goals, he didn't hesitate. "All I want out of life is that when I walk down the street, folks will say, 'There goes the greatest hitter who ever lived.'" With that declaration, Ted Williams's destiny was set. The boy from San Diego was now on the path to becoming a legend. When Ted Williams stepped into the batter's box, pitchers knew they were facing something close to perfection. His stance was meticulous, his swing a study in balance and violence blended into one. He wasn't just trying to get a hit, he was trying to master the art of hitting itself, to elevate it beyond instinct into science. And for 2 decades in Boston, he did exactly that. In his rookie year, he announced himself with 145 RBIs and a .327 batting average, but that was only the beginning. In 1941, at just 23 years old, Williams achieved what no one has matched since, a .406 batting average across a full season. He could have sat out the final day of the season to preserve his mark, but he refused. He played both games of a doubleheader, went 6 for 8, and etched his name into baseball immortality. That single decision became the ultimate symbol of his competitive fire. Ted Williams never settled for good enough. He went on to win not 1, but 2 Triple Crowns in 1942 and again in 1947, leading the league in batting average, home runs, and RBIs. Few hitters in history have even 1 Triple Crown to their name, but Williams did it twice, separated by a world war that took away nearly 5 years of his prime. His dominance at the plate was unmatched. 6 batting titles, 19 All-Star selections, and 2 MVP awards. And then, there is the number that may define him even more than .406. His career on-base percentage, .482, remains the highest in the history of Major League Baseball. Year after year, pitchers tried to work around him. In 1957, at the age of 39, he batted .388. A year later, he won another batting title, the oldest player ever to do so. Age, injuries, and even war could not erode the purity of his swing. Over 19 seasons with the Boston Red Sox, Williams hit 521 home runs and drove in nearly 1,840 runs, all while missing nearly 5 full seasons to military service. Analysts and historians have often wondered, had he not left the game to fly combat missions in World War II and the Korean War, would he have reached 700 home runs? Would he have surpassed Babe Ruth? But perhaps the most cinematic moment of his career came not in his prime, but at the very end. On the 28th of September, 1960, at Fenway Park, in the final at-bat of his career, Ted Williams swung one last time and sent the ball soaring over the wall for a home run. He rounded the bases without tipping his cap, just as he had played, proud, complicated, and unwilling to yield. It was a farewell worthy of the man they called the Splendid Splinter. Ted Williams's peak wasn't defined by a single year or a handful of statistics. It was defined by 2 decades of brilliance, by the relentless pursuit of perfection, and by numbers so staggering that they still stand untouched in baseball's record books. For all his brilliance on the field, Ted Williams lived a life shadowed by conflict and sacrifice. The first great interruption came in 1942, just after he had won his first Triple Crown. At the height of his powers, Williams traded his bat for a cockpit, enlisting as a fighter pilot in World War II. He would miss nearly 3 full seasons during what should have been the most productive years of his career. Later, when the Korean War broke out, he once again answered the call, flying combat missions and losing nearly 2 more seasons. Historians still wonder how many more records he might have broken if not for war. Yet, for Ted, duty came before glory. Off the field, his relationship with Boston's press and fans was famously volatile. He bristled at criticism, often refusing to tip his cap to the crowd even after a towering home run. Reporters painted him as arrogant, combative, and thin-skinned. Williams believed they misunderstood him, that his only obsession was hitting, not politics or popularity. The tension created a strange paradox. He was a hero to the Red Sox faithful, yet also a man who often seemed at odds with the city that adored him. There were personal battles as well. Injuries mounted as the years wore on, robbing him of time and consistency. His temper and stubbornness cost him friendships in the game, and his complicated private life included multiple marriages and estrangement from parts of his family. In the end, the man fans saw hitting home runs at Fenway was also a man carrying the weight of loneliness, expectations, and the unrelenting drive to be perfect. These cracks did not erase his greatness, but they revealed the cost of it. Ted Williams's story was not just about records and triumphs. It was also about sacrifice, pride, and the human struggle behind the legend. Ted Williams's story is one of unmatched greatness, but also of sacrifice, conflict, and enduring myth. He is remembered as the Splendid Splinter, the greatest pure hitter the game has ever known. His .406 season of 1,941 remains untouched, a monument to precision and skill that modern hitters can only dream of reaching. His career, on-base percentage of .482, stands alone at the top of baseball's history, proof of an eye so sharp and discipline so absolute that pitchers often preferred to walk him rather than face him. Yet, his legacy is bigger than numbers. He gave away nearly 5 years of his prime to military service, flying combat missions in 2 wars. In doing so, he became more than a ballplayer. He became a symbol of loyalty and sacrifice, an athlete who placed country above personal glory. That choice forever deepened the respect Americans carried for him, both as a sportsman and as a man. In Boston, Williams's relationship with fans and press remained complicated, but time softened the edges. Today, he is not remembered for refusing to tip his cap, but for the thunder of his swing and the pride he brought to Fenway Park. His bronze likeness stands outside the stadium, bat in hand, capturing the essence of the hitter who once defined an era. When he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1966, Williams used the moment not only to honor himself, but to advocate for the inclusion of Negro League stars who had been denied their rightful place in Cooperstown. It was a gesture that revealed both his awareness and his sense of justice, widening his legacy beyond the diamond. Ted Williams died in 2002, but his memory lives wherever baseball is played. His name still stirs awe, his swing still inspires imitation, and his numbers still stand as an impossible standard. To this day, when fans talk about the greatest hitter who ever lived, they almost always begin and end with Ted Williams. He once said, "All I want out of life is that when I walk down the street, folks will say, 'There goes the greatest hitter who ever lived.'" More than 2 decades after his passing, the world continues to grant him that wish.